What up, though? Oxford English Dictionary. Earth. The ground considered simply as a surface on which human beings, animals, and things associated with them rest or move. The ground considered as a solid stratum. The soil as suitable for cultivation, also with modifying word in indicating the nature or quality of the soil. The ground as a medium by which an electric circuit is completed, or as having zero potential, hence, electrical connection with the ground, now usually as a mass noun. This is from 1742, roughly. The purpose of such a connection may be to serve as a return path for a telegraph current, to provide a route for current that would otherwise pass through a person in case of a fault, or to protect against damage to electrical equipment by limiting the increase in voltage that can occur in it. An accidental connection to earth may result in leakage of current. We're speaking about earth and I guess your connection to it, and also your connection to it being called earth and whatever you know about it. Most of us only know what's in front of us. We speak of the world. We speak of the universe. But what do you really know about the world? What you know about the universe? Dry land, as opposed to the sea or other body of water. Land and sea, as opposed to the sky. We're speaking of earth. It says land and sea, as opposed to sky. The world considered as the dwelling place of humans. The world considered as the dwelling place of humans. Hue, man, hue of color. Man, man of color. The world considered as the dwelling place of men and women of color, frequently contrasted with heaven, hell, or some other place of future existence. Now, we know that heaven also means bliss, happiness, and I don't really know what hell means, but we have some miserable people here on earth who it seems they strive to make every second of your life hell. Leh-shay-kit. The world on which humankind lives, considered as a sphere, orb, or planet. Now, when we speak of humankind, hue, man, man of color, roughly, are we not speaking of the people who are not considered of color? And if we're not speaking of those people, What are they called? Where is their homeland? The idea that Earth is a sphere, the idea that Earth is a globe, the idea that Earth is a ball, a circle, the idea that Earth is a sphere is traditionally ascribed to Parmenides of Elea, early 5th century BC. It featured in the planetary system of Eudoxus of Credos. The idea that Earth is a sphere. The idea. The material of which the surface of the ground is composed. Soil. Earth. Soil. The material of the human body, considered as derived from the ground. The human body or its substance. Hue, man. The material of the hue, man, body, considered as derived from the ground, the earth, the soil. Oxford English Dictionary online, the subscription version. Firmament. The arch or vault of heaven overhead, in which the clouds and the stars appear. The sky or heavens. The arch or vault of heaven overhead, in which the clouds and the stars appear. The sky or heavens seems to be contained. 1290. Clouds and stars, skies or heaven, contained within a vault, the firmament. Heaven as the place where God dwells. Bliss as the place where the person you hold in high regard dwells. Your happiness is dependent on who is God to you, on who you hold in high regard. 1388. The sphere containing the fixed stars. The sphere containing the fixed stars. You look up fixed. 1400 to 1665. You dig into fixed stars. Who fixed them? In the literal etymological sense, anything which strengthens or supports a substratum, a firm support or foundation. We're speaking of the firmament here, 1554 to 1701. In the literal etymological sense, anything which strengthens or supports. Anything which strengthens or supports a substratum, a firm support or foundation. Oxford English Dictionary. Heaven. The expanse in which the sun, moon, and stars are seen, especially in earlier use, regarded as having the appearance of a vast vault arched over the earth. Earth, meaning soil, the ground. The expanse in which this is heaven we're speaking of. Heaven also means bliss or happiness. The expanse in which the sun, moon, and stars are seen, especially in earlier use, regarded as having the appearance of a vast vault arched over the earth, the sky, the firmament. having the appearance of a vast arched vault, arched over the earth. It didn't say it was, it said having the appearance of. Just because you believe something you don't understand doesn't mean that it's truth, doesn't mean that it's reality. Use in descriptions of things of great height or points at a great distance apart, as at opposite ends of the horizon. We're speaking of heaven here. Use in descriptions of things of great height. If you're standing on the ground level in front of a skyscraper, it's very difficult to see the 100th floor. It's of a great height. Does it not exist? Or do you have a firm grasp on what it actually is at the top? If you've never seen it, use in descriptions of great things of great height, or points at a distance, or points at a great distance apart, as at opposite ends of the horizon. Opposite ends, left to right, east to west. So I guess heaven is north. The part of the atmosphere above and closest to the earth's surface. The part of the atmosphere above and closest to the earth's surface, within which humans observe terrestrial weather systems, flight, and other activity in the sky local to earth. This region regarded as the provider or source of the earth's weather, 1398 to 1847. The region of space beyond the clouds, or the visible sky. The region of space beyond the clouds. You assume that the clouds appear naturally. Why? What if the clouds were... What happens when you blow a cloud of smoke from your square or your cigar or your pipe? You blow a cloud of smoke. What if what you're seeing are clouds of smoke that have been blown or made? I'm just asking. We're talking heaven here. It says the region of space beyond the clouds or the visible sky. So the region of the sky that you can't see. So if you can't see it, that means that you have to believe it's there. Or you guess it's there. Maybe it's there. The region of space beyond the clouds, because you can't see beyond the clouds. And now you can't even see the clouds because of all the uckery that's going on up there. Or the visible sky. The visible sky. A place of supreme bliss. So, heaven, a place of supreme bliss. So you think the place of supreme bliss, you think The place of heaven is the part of the sky that you can't see? Or is heaven something else? A state of supreme bliss, an immensely enjoyable experience, in later use frequently with infinitive phrase from 1413. A force controlling human life or fate. God, providence. A force controlling human life or fate. God, providence. Mission accomplished. Here we go. We're speaking of heaven. Don't get it confused with firmament, right? Question mark. A ceiling, a canopy, the covering over a stage. Leh-shay-kit. From the tiring house facade at what must have been a high level, projected a canopy often called the heavens, and there is much evidence to suggest that its underside was painted elaborately with the signs of the zodiac and the circles of the planet. C.W.R.D. Mosley, Shakespeare's History Plays, 1988. This is from KJV, the King James Version of the Bible, Genesis chapter 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. God, a person you hold in high regard. Heaven, bliss, happiness, extreme happiness. And the earth, the soil, the ground. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. For you. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven. What do you call it? Or did you call it anything? Or did you just eat what someone fed you? 200 Proofs Earth is Not a Spinning Ball by Eric Dubé. The horizon always appears perfectly flat, 360 degrees around the observer, regardless of altitude. All amateur balloons, rocket, plane, and drone footage show a completely flat horizon over 20 plus miles high. Only NASA and other government space agencies show curvature. The natural physics of the water is to find and maintain its level. Rivers run down to sea level, finding the easiest course, north, south, east, west, and all other intermediary directions over the earth at the same time. If earth were truly a spinning ball, then many of these rivers would be impossibly flowing uphill. For example, the Mississippi in its 3,000 miles would have to ascend 11 miles before reaching the Gulf of Mexico. One portion of the Nile River flows for 1,000 miles with a fall of only 1 foot. If Earth were a ball 25,000 miles in circumference, as NASA and modern astronomy claim, spherical trigonometry dictates the surface of all standing water must curve downward an easily measurable 8 inches per mile multiplied by the square of the distance. This means along a 6-mile channel of standing water, the Earth would dip 6 feet on either end from the central peak. Every time such experiments have been conducted, however, standing water has proven to be perfectly level. Surveyors, engineers, and architects are never required to factor the supposed curvature of the Earth into their projects. Canals, railways, bridges, and tunnels, for example, are always cut and laid horizontally, often over hundreds of miles without any allowance for curvature. The Suez Canal, connecting the Mediterranean with the Red Sea, is 100 miles long without any locks, making the water an uninterrupted continuation of the two seas. When constructed, the Earth's supposed curvature was not taken into account. It was dug along a horizontal datum, line 26 feet sea level, passing through several lakes from one sea to the other, which the datum line and water surface running perfectly parallel over the 100 miles. Engineer W. Winkler was published in the Earth Review regarding the Earth's supposed curvature, stating, "As an engineer of many years standing, I saw that this absurd allowance is only permitted in school books. No engineer would dream of allowing anything of the kind. I have projected many miles of railways and many more of canals, and the allowance has not even been thought of, much less allowed for. This allowance for curvature means this, that it is 8 inches for the first mile of a canal and increasing at the ratio by the square of the distance in miles. Thus, a small navigable canal for boats, say 30 miles long, will have, by the above rule, an allowance for curvature of 600 feet. Think of that, and then please credit engineers as not being quite such fools. Nothing of this sort is allowed. We no more think of allowing 600 feet for a line of 30 miles of railway or canal than of wasting our time trying to square the circle. The London and Northwestern Railway forms a straight line 180 miles long between London and Liverpool. The railroad's highest point, midway at Birmingham Station, is only 240 feet above sea level. If the world were actually a globe, however, curving 8 inches per mile squared, the 180-mile stretch of rail would form an arc with the center point at Birmingham raising over a mile, a full 5,400 feet above London and Liverpool. A surveyor, an engineer of 30 years, published in Birmingham Weekly Mercury, stated, "I am thoroughly acquainted with the theory and practice of civil engineering. However bigoted some of the professors may be in the theory of surveying according to the prescribed rules, yet it is well known among us that such theoretical measurements are incapable of any practical illustration. All our locomotives are designed to run on what may be regarded as true levels or flats. There are, of course, partial inclines or gradients here and there, but they are always accurately defined and must be carefully traversed. But anything approaching to 8 inches in the mile increasing as the square of the distance could not be worked by any engine that was ever yet constructed. Taking one station with another all over England and Scotland, it may be stated that all the platforms are on the same relative level. The distance between eastern and western coasts of England may be set down as 300 miles. If the prescribed curvature was indeed as represented, the central station at Rugby or Warwick ought to be close upon 3 miles higher than a cord drawn from the two extremities. If such was the case, there is not a driver or stoker within the kingdom that would be found to take charge of the train. We can only laugh at those of you readers who seriously give us credit for such venturesome exploits as running trains round spherical curves. Horizontal curves on levels are dangerous enough. Vertical curves would be 1,000 times worse. And with our rolling stock constructed at present, physical impossible. The Manchester Ship Canal Company published in the Earth Review stated, "It is customary in railway and canal constructions for all levels to be referred to a datum which is normally horizontal and is so shown on all sections. It is not the practice in laying out public works to make allowances for the curvature of the earth." In a 19th century French experiment by M. Biot and Arago, a powerful lamp with good reflectors was placed on the summit of Desierto La Palmas in Spain and able to be seen all the way from the Campri on the island of Ibiza. Since the elevation of the 2 points were identical, the distance between covered nearly 100 miles. If Earth were a ball 25,000 miles in circumference, the light should have been more than 6,600 feet. If Earth were a ball 25,000 miles in circumference, the light should have been more than 6,600 feet, a mile and a quarter below the line of sight. The lieutenant colored portlock experiment used oxyhydrogen Drummond's lights and heliostats to reflect the sun's rays across stations set up across 108 miles of St. George's Canal. If the Earth were actually a ball 25,000 miles in circumference, Portlock's light should have remained hidden under 1.5 miles of curvature. If the Earth were truly a sphere 25,000 miles in circumference, airplane pilots would have to constantly correct their altitudes downwards so as to not fly straight off into outer space. A pilot wishing to simply maintain their altitude at a typical cruising speed of 500 miles per hour would have to constantly dip their nose downward and descend 2,777 feet over 1/2 mile every minute. Otherwise, without compensation, in 1 hour's time, the pilot would find themselves 31.5 miles higher than expected. Ober's paradox states that if there were billions of stars, which are the suns, which are suns, the night sky would. Ober's paradox states that if there were billions of stars, which are suns, the night sky would be filled completely with light. As Edgar Allan Poe said, were the succession of stars endless, then the background of the sky would present us a uniform luminosity. Since there could exist absolutely no point in all that background or which would not exist a star. In fact, Ober's paradox is no more a paradox than George Airy's experiment was a failure. Both are actually excellent refutations of the heliocentric spinning ball model. If Earth were truly constantly spinning eastwards at over 1,000 miles per hour, vertically fired cannonballs and other projectiles should fall significantly due west. In actual fact, however, whenever this has been tested, vertically fired cannonballs shoot upwards, an average of 14 seconds ascending, 14 seconds descending, and fall back to the ground no more than 2 feet away from the cannons, often directly back into the muzzle. If the Earth were truly constantly spinning eastward at over 1,000 miles per hour, helicopters and hot air balloons should be able to simply hover over the surface of the Earth and wait for the destinations to come to them. Ball believers often claim gravity magically and inexplicably drags the entire lower atmosphere of the Earth in perfect synchronization up to some undetermined height where this progressively faster spinning atmosphere gives way to the non-spinning, non-gravitated, non-atmosphere of infinite vacuum space. Such nonsensical theories are debunked, however, by rain, fireworks, birds, bugs, clouds, smoke, planes, and projectiles, all of which would behave very differently if both the ball Earth and its atmosphere were constantly spinning eastward at 1,000 miles per hour. If Earth and its atmosphere were constantly spinning eastward over 1,000 miles per hour, then the average commercial airliner traveling 500 miles per hour should never be able to reach its eastward destinations before they come speeding up from behind. Likewise, westward destinations should be arrived at thrice the speed. But this is not the case. Quoting Heaven and Earth by Gabriel Henriette, if flying had been invented at the time of Copernicus, there is no doubt that he would have soon realized that his contention regarding the rotation of the Earth was wrong, on account of the relation existing between the speed of an aircraft and that of the Earth's rotation. If the Earth rotates, as it said, 1,000 miles per hour, and a plane flies in the same direction at only 500 miles, it is obvious that its place of destination would be further removed every minute. On the other hand, if flying took place in the direction opposite to that of the rotation, a distance of 1,500 miles would be covered in 1 hour instead of 500, since the speed of the rotation is to be added to that of the plane. It could also be pointed out that such a flying speed of 1,000 miles an hour, which is supposed to be that of the Earth's rotation has recently been achieved, so that an aircraft flying at this rate in the same direction as that of the rotation could not cover any ground at all. It would remain suspended in mid-air over the spot from which it took off, since both speeds are equal. If the Earth and its atmosphere were constantly spinning eastwards over 1,000 miles per hour, this should somewhere somehow be seen, heard, felt, or measured by someone, yet no one in history has ever experienced this alleged eastward motion. Meanwhile, however, we can hear, feel, and experimentally measure even the slightest westward breeze. In his book, South Sea Voyages, Arctic and Antarctic, explorer Sir James Clark Ross described his experience on the night of November 27, 1839, and his conclusion that the Earth must be motionless. The sky being very clear, it enabled us to observe the higher stratum of clouds to be moving in an exactly opposite direction to that of the wind, a circumstance which is frequently recorded in our meteorological journal, both in the northeast and southeast trades, and has also often been observed by former voyagers. Captain Basil Hall witnessed it from the summit of the peak of Tenerife, and the count on ascending the volcanic mountain of Carania and Owaiki reached at 4,000 feet an elevation above that of the trade wind, and experienced the influence of an opposite current of air of a different hygrometric and thermometric condition. The Count further informed me of the following seemingly anomalous circumstance, that at the height of 6,000 feet, he found the current of air blowing at right angles to both the lower strata, also of a different hygrometric and thermometric condition, but warmer than the inner stratum. Such a state of the atmosphere is compatible only with the fact, which other evidence has demonstrated, that the earth is at rest. Quoting Zetetic Cosmology, Thomas Winship states, "Let imagination picture to the mind what force air would have, which was set in motion by a spherical body of 8,000 miles in diameter, which in 1 hour was spinning round 1,000 miles per hour, rushing through space at 65,000 miles per hour, and gyrating across the heavens. Then let conjecture endeavor to discover whether the inhabitants on such a globe could keep their hair on. If the earth globe rotates on its axis at the terrific rate of 1,000 miles an hour, such an immense mass would of necessity cause a tremendous rush of wind in the space it occupied. The wind would go all one way, and anything like clouds which got within the sphere of influence of the rotating sphere would have to go the same way. The fact that the Earth is at rest is proved by kite flying. If gravity is credited with being a force strong enough to hold the world's oceans, buildings, people, and atmospheres stuck to the surface of a rapidly spinning ball, then it is impossible for gravity to also simultaneously be weak enough to allow little birds, bugs, and planes to take off and travel freely, unabated in any direction. If gravity is credited with being a force strong enough to curve the massive expanse of oceans around the globular Earth, it would be impossible for fish and other creatures to swim through such forcefully held water. Ship captains in navigating great distances at sea never need to factor the supposed curvature of the earth into the calculations. Both plain sailing and great circle sailing, the most popular navigation methods, use plane, not spherical trigonometry, making all mathematical calculations on the assumption that the earth is perfectly flat. If the earth were in fact a sphere, such an errant assumption would lead to constant glaring inaccuracies. Plain sailing has worked perfectly fine in both theory and practice for thousands of years. However, and plane trigonometry has time and again proven more accurate than spherical trigonometry in determining distances across oceans. During Captain James Clark Ross's voyage around the Antarctic circumference, he often wrote in his journal, perplexed at how they routinely found themselves out of accordance with their charts, starting that they found themselves an average of 12 to 16 miles outside their reckoning every day. Later on, further south, as much as 29 miles. Lieutenant Charles Wilkes commanded a United States Navy exploration expedition to the Antarctic from 1838 to 1842, and in his journals also mentioned being consistently east of his reckoning, sometimes over 20 miles in less than 18 hours. To quote Reverend Thomas Milner, in the southern hemisphere, navigators to India here have often fancied themselves east of the Cape when still west, and have been driven ashore on the African coast, which, according to their reckoning, lay behind them. This misfortune happened to a fine frigate, the Challenger, in 1845. How came Her Majesty's ship Conqueror to be lost? How have so many other noble vessels, perfectly sound, perfectly manned, perfectly navigated, been wrecked in a calm weather? Not only in a dark night or in a fog, but in broad daylight and sunshine. In the former case upon the coast, in the latter upon sunken rocks. From being out of reckoning, the simple answer is the earth is not a ball. In the ball earth model, Antarctica is an ice continent which covers the bottom of the ball from 78 degrees south latitude to 90 and is therefore not more than 12,000 miles in circumference. Many early explorers, including Captain Cook and James Clark Ross, however, in attempting Antarctic circumnavigation took 3 to 4 years and clocked 50 to 60,000 miles around. The British ship Challenger also made an indirect but complete circumnavigation of Antarctica, traversing 69,000 miles. This is entirely inconsistent with the ball model. If Earth was a ball, there are several flights in the southern hemisphere which would have their quickest, straightest path over the Antarctic continent, such as Santiago, Chile, to Sydney, Australia. Instead of taking the shortest, quickest route in a straight line over Antarctica, all such flights detour all manner of directions away from Antarctica, instead claiming the temperatures too cold for airplane travel. Considering the fact that there are plenty of flights to, from over Antarctica, and NASA claims to have technology keeping them in conditions far colder and far hotter than any experienced on Earth. Such an excuse is clearly just an excuse, and these flights aren't made because they are impossible. If Earth was a ball and Antarctica was too cold to fly over, the only logical way to fly from Sydney to Santiago would be a straight shot over the Pacific, staying in the southern hemisphere the entire way. Refueling could be done in New Zealand or other southern hemisphere destinations along the way if absolutely necessary. In actual fact, however, Santiago-Sydney flights go into northern hemisphere, making stops over at LAX and other North American airports before continuing back down to the southern hemisphere. Such ridiculously wayward detours make no sense on the globe, but make perfect sense and form nearly straight lines when shown on a flat Earth map. On a ball Earth, Johannesburg, South Africa, to Perth, Australia, should be a straight shot over the Indian Ocean, with convenient refueling possibilities on Mauritius or Madagascar. In actual practice, however, most Johannesburg to Perth flights curiously stop over either Dubai, Hong Kong, or Malaysia, all of which make no sense on the ball, but are completely understandable when mapped on a flat Earth. On a ball Earth, Cape Town, South Africa, to Buenos Aires, Argentina, should be a straight shot over the Atlantic following the same line of latitude across, but instead every flight goes to connecting locations in the northern hemisphere first, stopping over anywhere from London to Turkey to Dubai. Once again, these make absolutely no sense on the globe, but are completely understandable options when mapped on a flat Earth. On a ball Earth, Johannesburg, South Africa to Sao Paulo, Brazil, should be a quick straight shot along the 25th southern latitude, but instead nearly every flight makes a refueling stop at the 50th degree north latitude in London first. The only reason such a ridiculous stopover works in reality is because the Earth is flat. On a ball Earth, Santiago, Chile to Johannesburg, South Africa should be an easy flight, all taking place below the Tropic of Capricorn in the southern hemisphere. Yet every listed flight makes a curious refueling stop in Senegal, near the Tropic of Cancer in the north hemisphere first. When mapped on a flat Earth, the reason why is clear to see. However, Senegal is actually directly in a straight line path halfway between the two. If Earth were a spinning ball heated by a sun 93 million miles away, it would be impossible to have simultaneously sweltering summers in Africa, while just a few thousand miles away, bone-chilling frozen Antarctic winters experiencing little to no heat from the sun whatsoever. If the heat from the sun traveled 93 million miles to the Sahara Desert, it is absurd to assert that another 4,000 miles further to Antarctica would completely negate such sweltering heat, resulting in such drastic differences. At places of comparable latitude, north and south, the sun behaves very differently than it would on a spinning ball Earth, but precisely how it should on a flat Earth. For example, the longest summer days north of the equator are much longer than those south of the equator. And the shortest winter days north of the equator are much shorter than the shortest south of the equator. This is inexplicable on a uniformly spinning, wobbling ball Earth, but fits exactly on the flat model, with the sun traveling circles over and around the Earth from tropic to tropic. The establishment claims the midnight sun is experienced in Antarctica, but they conveniently do not have any uncut video showing this, nor do they allow independent explorers to travel to Antarctica during the winter solstice to verify or refute these claims. Conversely, there are dozens of uncut videos publicly available showing the Arctic midnight sun, and it has been verified beyond any shadow of a doubt. Quoting Gabriel Henriette, the theory of the rotation of the Earth may once and for all be definitely disposed of as impracticable by pointing out the following inadvertence. It is said that the rotation takes 24 hours and that its speed is uniform, in which case, necessarily, days and nights should have an identical duration of 12 hours each all the year round. The sun should invariably rise in the morning and set in the evening at the same hours, with the result that it would be the equinox every day from the 1st of January to the 31st of December. One should stop and reflect on this before saying that the Earth has a movement of rotation. How does the system of gravitation account for the seasonal variations in the length of days and nights if the Earth rotates at a uniform speed in 24 hours? Anyone can prove the sea horizon perfectly straight and the entire Earth perfectly flat using nothing more than level tripods and a wooden plank. At any altitude over sea level, simply fix a 6 to 12 foot long smooth leveled board edgewise upon tripods and observe the skyline from eye level behind it. The distant horizon will always align perfectly parallel with the upper edge of the board. Furthermore, if you move in a half circle from one end of the board to the other whilst observing the skyline over the upper edge, you will be able to trace a clear, flat 10 to 20 miles depending on your altitude. This would be impossible if the Earth were a globe 25,000 miles in circumference. The horizon would align over the center of the board, but then gradually, noticeably decline toward the extremities. Just 10 miles on each side would necessitate an easily visible curvature of 66.6 feet from each end to the center. Of course, it had to be 66.6 feet, 666. The mark of the beast, the number of a man. Leh-shay-kit. If the Earth were actually a big ball 25,000 miles in circumference, the horizon would be noticeably curved even at sea level, and everything on or approaching the horizon would appear to tilt backwards slightly from your perspective. Distant buildings along the horizon would all look like leaning towers of Pisa falling away from the observer. A hot air balloon taking off, then drifting steadily away from you on a ball Earth would slowly and constantly appear to lean back more and more. The farther away it flew, the bottom of the basket coming gradually into view as the top of the balloon disappears from sight. In reality, however, buildings, balloons, trees, people, anything and everything at right angles to the ground horizon remains so regardless the distance or height of the observer. Samuel Rowbotham's experiment at the Old Bedford level proved conclusively the canal's water to be completely flat over a 6-mile stretch. First, he stood in the canal with his telescope held 8 inches above the surface of the water. Then his friend in a boat with a 5-foot-tall flag sailed the 6 miles away. If Earth were a ball 25,000 miles in circumference, the 6-mile stretch of the water should have comprised an arc exactly 6 feet high in the middle. So the entire boat and flag should have ultimately disappeared, when in fact, the entire boat and flag remained visible at the same height for the entire journey. In a second experiment, Dr. Rowbotham affixed flags 5 feet high along the shoreline, one at every mile marker. Then, using his telescope, mounted a 5 feet just behind the first flag, looked over the tops of all 6 flags, which lined up in a perfectly straight line. If the Earth were a ball 25,000 miles in circumference, the flag should have progressively dipped down after the first establishing line of sight. The second would have descended 8 inches, 32 inches for the third, 6 feet for the fourth, 10 feet 8 inches for the fifth, and 16 feet 8 inches for the sixth. Quoting Earth, Not a Globe by Samuel Rowbotham. It is known that the horizon at sea, whatever distance it may extend to the right and left of the observer on land, always appears as a straight line. The following experiment has been tried in various parts of the country. At Brighton, on a rising ground near the race course, 2 poles were fixed in the earth 6 yards apart and directly opposite sea, Between these poles, a line was tightly stretched parallel to the horizon. From the center of the line, the view embraced not less than 20 miles on each side, making a distance of 40 miles. A vessel was observed sailing directly westward. The line cut the rigging a little above the bulwarks, which it did for several hours or until the vessel had sailed the whole distance of 40 miles. The ship coming into view from the east would have to ascend an inclined plane for 20 miles until it arrived at the center of the arc, whence it would have to descend for the same distance. The square of 20 miles multiplied by 8 inches gives 266 feet, as the amount of the vessel would be below the line at the beginning and at the end of the 40 miles. The distance across the Irish Sea from the Isle of Man's Douglas Harbor to Great Orme's Head in North Wales is 60 miles. If the earth was a globe, then the surface of the water between them would form a 60-mile arc, the center towering 1944 feet higher than the coastlines at either end. It is well known and easily verifiable, however, that on a clear day, from a modest altitude of 100 feet, the Great Orme's Head is visible from Douglas Harbor. This would be completely impossible on a globe of 25,000 miles. Assuming the 100-foot altitude causes the horizon to appear approximately 13 miles off, the 47 miles remaining means the Welsh coastline should still fall an impossible 1,472 feet below the line of sight. The New York skyline is clearly visible from Harriman State Park's Bear Mountain 60 miles away. If Earth were a ball 25,000 miles in circumference, viewing from Bear Mountain's 1,283-foot summit, the Pythagorean theorem determining distance to the horizon being 1.23 times the square root of the height in feet, the NYC skyline should be invisible behind 170 feet of curved earth. It is often possible to see the Chicago skyline from sea level 60 miles away across Lake Michigan. In 2015, after photographer Joshua Nowicki photographed this phenomenon, several news channels quickly claimed his picture to be a superior mirage, an atmospheric anomaly caused by temperature inversion. While these certainly do occur, the skyline in question was facing right side up and clearly seen unlike a hazy, illusory mirage. On a ball, Earth 25,000 miles in circumference should be 2,400 feet below the horizon. October 16th, 1854, the Times newspaper reported the Queen's visit to Great Grimsby from Hull, recording they were able to see the 300-foot tall dock tower from 70 miles away. On a ball Earth 25,000 miles in circumference, factoring their 10-foot elevation above water and the towering 300-foot height, a 70-mile away, the dock tower should have remained an entire 2,600 feet below the horizon. In 1872, Captain Gibson and crewmates sailing the ship Thomas Wood from China to London reported seeing the entirety of St. Helena Island on a clear day from 75 miles away. Factoring in their height during measurement on a ball Earth 25,000 miles in circumference, it was found the island should have been 3,650 feet below their line of sight. From Anchorage, Alaska, at an elevation of 102 feet, on clear days, Mount McKinley can be seen with the naked eye from 130 miles away. If Earth were a ball 25,000 miles in circumference, Mount McKinley's 20,320-foot summit should be leaning back away from the observer and almost half covered by 9,220 feet of curved Earth. In reality, however, the entire mountain can be quite easily seen standing straight from base to summit. In Chambers' journal, February 1895, a sailor near Mauritius in the Indian Ocean reported having seen a vessel which turned out to be an incredible 200 miles away. The incident caused much heated debate in nautical circles at the time, gaining further confirmation in Aden, Yemen, where another witness reported seeing a missing Bombay steamer from 200 miles away. He correctly stated the precise appearance, location, and direction of the steamer, all later corroborated and confirmed correct by those on board. Such sightings are absolutely inexplicable if the Earth were actually a ball 25,000 miles around, as ships 200 miles distance would have to fall approximately 5 miles below the line of sight. The distance from which various lighthouse lights around the world are visible at sea far exceeds what could be found on a ball Earth's 25,000 miles in circumference. For example, the Dunkerque light in southern France at an altitude of 194 feet is visible from a boat 10 feet above sea level 25 miles away. Spherical trigonometry dictates that if the Earth was a globe with the given curvature of 8 inches per mile squared, this light should be hidden 190 feet below the horizon. The Port Nicholson lights in New Zealand is 420 feet above sea level and visible from 35 miles away, where it should be 220 feet below the horizon. The Agero light in Norway is 154 feet above high water and visible from 28 statute miles, where it should be 230 feet below the horizon. The light at Madras on the Esplanade is 132 feet high and visible from 28 miles away, where it should be 250 feet below the line of sight. The Cordoman light on the west coast of France is 207 feet high and visible from 31 miles away, where it should be 280 feet below the line of sight. The Statue of Liberty in New York stands 326 feet above sea level and on a clear day can be seen as far as 60 miles away. If the Earth were a globe, that would put Lady Liberty at an impossible 2,074 feet below the horizon. The Notre Dame Antwerp spire stands 403 feet high from the foot of the tower, with Strasbourg measuring 468 feet above sea level. With the aid of a telescope, ships can be distinguished on the horizon, and captains declare they can see the cathedral spire from an amazing 150 miles away. If the Earth were a globe, however, at that distance, the spire should be an entire mile, 5,280 feet below the horizon. From 100 Proofs the Earth is Not a Globe by William Carpenter. If we take a journey down the Chesapeake Bay by night, we shall see the light exhibited at Sharp's Island for an hour before the steamer gets to it. We may take up a position on the deck so that the rail of the vessel's side will be in a line with the light and in the line of sight. And we shall find that in the whole journey, the light won't vary in the slightest degree in its apparent elevation. But say that a distance of 13 miles has been traversed. The astronomer's theory of curvature demands a difference, one way or the other, in the apparent elevation of the light of 112 feet 8 inches, since, however, there is not a difference of 100 hair's breadths. We have a plain proof that the water of the Chesapeake Bay is not curved, which is a proof that the earth is not a globe. NASA and modern astronomy say the earth is a giant ball tilted back, wobbling and spinning 1,000 miles per hour around its central axis, traveling 67,000 miles circles around the sun, spiraling 500,000 miles per hour around the Milky Way, while the entire galaxy rockets a ridiculous 670 million miles through the universe, with all these motions originating from an alleged Big Bang cosmogonic explosion 14 billion years ago. That's a grand total of 670,568,000 miles per hour in several different directions. We're supposedly speeding along it simultaneously. Yet no one has ever seen, felt, heard, measured, or proven a single one of these motions to exist whatsoever. NASA and modern astronomy say Polaris, the North Pole star, is somewhere between 434 light years, or about 2 quadrillion miles away from us. NASA and modern astronomy say Polaris, the North Pole star, is somewhere between 323 and 434 light years away, or about 2 quadrillion miles away from us. This is not belief or disbelief. How would one know that? How long are you on this earth? Roughly 70, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years? 2 quadrillion miles away from us. Imagine it. Imagine 1,000,000 pieces of paper. 2 quadrillion miles away from us. Firstly, note that it is between this number you see on the screen to this number you see on the screen, miles making a difference of, and again, it's 666, what is this, quadrillion or trillion? Why over 600 trillion? This is 666 trillion. Why is it continuously saying 666? Why? This is making me question everything about what I'm reading right now. This is making me question everything about Eric Dubé's book. Or should I be questioning where he's getting these numbers from? He's getting these numbers from NASA and modern astronomy. Is it a coincidence that their estimates come out to 666 trillion? If modern astronomy is just playing with us, but see, it's not funny. And it's no one's fault but yours. Yeah, it's your fault. It's your fault for not looking in the sky long enough. You look up there, you see some lights, that's it. You don't look between the lights. You don't pay attention to this sun. More to come on the sun. Because I'm completely perplexed by the sun. But it ain't nobody's fault. From the time your children 3, 4, 5 months, a year old, 3 years old, you send them to be educated slash nurtured slash nourished by complete strangers, and this is what the complete strangers teach them. They teach them how to move away from their natural sense, their natural senses. If modern astronomy cannot even agree on the distance to the stars within hundreds of trillions of miles, perhaps their science is flawed and their theory needs re-examining. However, even granting their obscurely distant stars, it is impossible for heliocentrists to explain how Polaris manages to always remain perfectly aligned straight above the North Pole throughout Earth's various alleged tilting, wobbling, rotating, and revolving motions. The so-called South Pole is simply an arbitrary point along the Antarctic ice marked with a red and white barbershop pole topped with a metal ball Earth. This ceremonial South Pole is admittedly and provably not the actual South Pole. However, because the actual South Pole could be demonstrably confirmed with the aid of a compass showing north to be 360 degrees around the observer. Since this feat has never been achieved, the model remains pure theory, along with the establishment's excuse that the geomagnetic poles supposedly constantly move around, making verification of their claims impossible. The mariner's compass is an impossible and nonsensical instrument for use on a ball Earth. It simultaneously points north and south over a flat surface, yet claims to be pinpointing two constantly moving geomagnetic poles at opposite ends of a spinning sphere originating from a hypothetical molten metal core. If compass needles were actually drawn to the North Pole of a globe, the opposing south needle would actually be pointing up and off into outer space. There are no fixed east or west points, just as there is no fixed south. The North Central Pole is the only proven fixed point on our flat Earth, with south being all straight lines outward from the pole, east and west being concentric circles at constant right angles 90 degrees from the pole. The westerly circumnavigation of Earth is thus going around with Polaris continually on your right, while an easterly circumnavigation is going around with Polaris always at your left. Magellan and others' east-west circumnavigation of Earth are often quoted as proof of the ball model. In actual fact, however, sailing or flying at right's angles to the North Pole and eventually returning to one's original location is no more difficult or mysterious than doing so on a globe. Just as an architect's compass can place its center point on a flat piece of paper and trace a circle either way around the pole, so can a ship or plane circumnavigate a flat Earth. Since the North Pole and Antarctica are covered in ice and guarded No fly zones, no ships or planes have ever been known to circumnavigate the Earth in north-south directions. The only kind of circumnavigation which could not happen on a flat Earth is north-south bound, which is likely the very reason for the heavily enforced flight restrictions. The fact that there has yet to be a single verified north-south circumnavigation of Earth serves as a standing proof the world is not a ball. The sun brings noon to every time zone as it passes directly overhead every 15-degree demarcation point 24 times per day in its circular path over and around the Earth. If time zones were instead caused by the uniform spinning of the ball Earth around the sun every 6 months, as Earth found itself on the opposite side of the sun, clocks all over Earth would have to flip 12 hours. Days would be night and night would be day. The idea that people are standing, ships are sailing, and planes are flying upside down on certain parts of Earth while others tilted at 90 degrees and all other impossible angles is complete absurdity. The idea that a man digging a hole straight down could eventually reach sky on the other side is ludicrous. Common sense tells every free-thinking person correctly that there truly is an up and down in nature, unlike the everything is relative rhetoric of the Newtonian, Einsteinian paradigm. Quoting on the false wisdom of the philosophers by Lactantius, a sphere where people on the other side live with their feet above their heads, where rain, snow, and hail fall upwards, where trees and crops grow upside down, and the sky is lower than the ground? The ancient wonder of the hanging gardens of Babylon dwindle into nothing in comparison to the fields, sea, towns, mountains that pagan philosophers believe to be hanging from the earth without support. The existing laws of density and buoyancy perfectly explain the physics of falling objects long before knighted Freemason Sir Isaac Newton bestowed his theory of gravity upon the world. It is a fact that objects placed in denser mediums rise up while objects placed in less dense mediums sink down. To fit with the heliocentric model, which is no up or down, Newton instead claimed objects are attracted to large masses and fall toward the center. Not a single experiment in history, however, has shown an object massive enough to, by virtue of its mass alone, cause other smaller masses to be attracted to it, as Newton claims gravity does with Earth, the sun, moon, stars, and planets. There has also never been a single experiment in history showing an object massive enough to, by virtue of its masses alone, cause another smaller mass to orbit around it. The magic theory of gravity allows for oceans, buildings, and people to remain forever stuck to the underside of a spinning ball while simultaneously causing objects like the moon and satellites to remain locked in perpetual circular orbits around the earth. If these were both true, then people should be able to jump up and start orbiting circles around the earth, or the moon should have long ago been sucked into the earth. Neither of these theories have ever been experimentally verified, and their alleged results are mutually exclusive. And Newton's also theorized, and it is now commonly taught, that the Earth's ocean tides are caused by gravitational lunar attraction. If the moon is only 2,160 miles in diameter and the Earth 8,000 miles, however, using their own math and law, it follows that the Earth is 87 times more massive and therefore the larger object should attract the smaller to it and not the other way around. If the Earth's greater gravity is what keeps the moon in orbit, it is impossible for the moon's lesser gravity to supersede the Earth's gravity, especially at Earth's sea level, where its gravitational attraction would even further out-trump the moon's. And if the moon's gravity truly did supersede the Earth's, causing the tides to be drawn toward it, there should be nothing to stop them from continuing onward and upwards toward their greater attractor. Furthermore, the velocity and path of the moon are uniform and should therefore exert a uniform influence on the Earth's tides, when in actuality the Earth's tides vary greatly and do not follow the moon. Earth's lakes, ponds, marshes, and other inland bodies of water also inexplicably remain forever outside the moon's gravitational grasp. If gravity was truly drawing Earth's oceans up to it, all lakes, ponds, and other bodies of standing water should certainly have tides as well. It is claimed that the other planets are spheres, and so therefore Earth must also be a sphere. Firstly, Earth is a plane, not a planet. So the shape of these planets in the sky have no bearing on the shape of the Earth beneath our feet. Secondly, these planets have been known for thousands of years around the world as the wandering stars, since they differ from the other fixed stars in their relative motions only. When looked at with an unprejudiced naked eye or through a telescope, the fixed and wandering stars appear as luminous disks of light, not spherical terra firma. When looked at with the unprejudiced naked eye or through a telescope, the fixed and wandering stars appear as luminous disks of light, not spherical terra firma. The pictures and videos shown by NASA of spherical terra firma planets are all clearly the pictures and videos shown by NASA of spherical terra firma planets are all clearly fake computer generated images and not photographs. You all know that, right? Yes, you know that. The etymology of the word planet, as I've discussed before in an earlier show, the etymology of the word planet actually comes from the Old English planets, from the Old French planet, modern French planète, from Latin planeta, from Greek planetes, from asterisk planetae, wandering stars, from planestai, to wander, if unknown origins, possibly from peli, flat, to spread or notion of spread out, and plane, flat surface, circa 1600, from Latin planum, flat surface, plane, level, plane, planus, flat, level, even, plain, clear. They just added a T to our earth plane, and everyone bought it. Because what? Say it with me. The game is to be sold, not told. When you observe the sun and moon, you see two equally sized equidistant circles tracing similar paths at similar speeds around a flat, stationary Earth. The experts at NASA, however, claim your common sense everyday experience is false on all counts. To begin with, they say the Earth is not flat but a big ball, not stationary but spinning around 19 miles per second. They say the sun does not revolve around the earth as it appears, but earth revolves around the sun. The moon, on the other hand, does revolve around the earth, though not east to west as it appears, rather west to east. And the sun is actually 400 times larger than the moon and 400 times farther away. You can clearly see they are the same size and distance. You can see Earth is flat. You can feel the Earth is stationary. But according to the gospel of modern astronomy, you are wrong and a simpleton worthy of endless ridicule if you dare to trust your own eyes and experience. How dare you feel what is under your feet? Quoting Alan Daves, if the government or NASA had said to you that Earth is stationary, imagine that. And then imagine we are trying to convince people that no, it's not stationary. It's moving forward at 32 times rifle bullet speed and spinning at 1,000 miles per hour. We would be laughed at. We would have so many people telling us, you are crazy. The earth is not moving. We would be ridiculed for having no scientific backing for this convoluted moving earth theory. And not only that, but then people would say, oh, then how do you explain a fixed, calm atmosphere and the sun's observable movement? How do you explain that? Imagine saying to people, no, the atmosphere is moving also, but is somehow magically velcroed to the moving earth. The reason is not simply because the earth is stationary. So what we are actually doing is what makes sense. We are saying that the moving earth theory is nonsense. The stationary earth theory makes sense, and we are being ridiculed. You've got to picture it being the other way around to realize just how ridiculous this situation is. This theory from government and NASA that the earth is rotating and orbiting and leaning over and wobbling is absolute nonsense, and yet people are clinging to it tightly like a teddy bear. They just can't bring themselves to face all the possibility that the earth is stationary, though all the evidence shows it. We feel no movement. The atmosphere hasn't been blown away. We see the sun move from east to west. Everything can be explained by a motionless earth without bringing in all these assumptions to cover up previous assumptions gone bad. Amateur balloon footage taken above the clouds has proved stunning visual proof that the sun cannot be millions of miles away. In several shots, you can see a clear hot spot reflecting on the clouds directly below the sun's spotlight-like influence. If the sun were actually millions of miles away, such a small, localized hotspot could never occur. Another proof the sun is not millions of miles away is found by tracing the angle of sun's rays back to the source above the clouds. There are thousands of pictures at a variance of converging angles. The area of convergence is, of course, the sun and is clearly not millions of miles away, but rather relatively close to Earth, just above the clouds. The fact that the sun and moon's reflections on water always form a straight line path from horizon to the observer proves the Earth is not a ball. If Earth's surface was curved, it would be impossible for the reflected light to curve over the ball from the horizon to observer. There are huge centuries old stone sundials and moon dials all over the world which still tell the time now down to the minute as perfectly as the day they were made. If the earth, sun, and moon were truly subject to the number of contradictory, revolving, rotating, wobbling, and spiraling motions claimed by modern astronomy, it would be impossible for the monuments to so accurately tell time without constant adjustment. NASA and modern astronomy maintain that the moon is a solid spherical Earth-like habitation which man has actually flown to and set foot on. They claim the moon is a non-luminescent planetoid which receives and reflects all its light from the sun. The reality is, however, the moon is observably not a solid body. It is clearly circular, but not spherical, and not in any way an Earth-like planetoid which humans could set foot on. In fact, the moon has been proven largely transparent and completely self-luminescent, shining with its own unique light. I have myself, in the daytime, the sky was a pretty blue. And this picture that we're looking at on the screen right now that shows the moon as a luminescent object with its own light, and you can clearly see the pretty blue sky through it. I have seen the moon in this exact way. Leh-shay-kit. Not only is the moon clearly self-luminescent, shining its own unique light, but it is also largely transparent. I have observed this myself. When the waxing or waning moon is visible during the day, it is possible to see the blue sky right through the moon. And on a clear night during a waxing or waning cycle, it is even possible to occasionally see stars and planets directly through the surface of the moon. The Royal Astronomical Society has on record many such occurrences throughout history, which all defy the heliocentric model. Again, picture in the top right-hand corner. This is a picture that it's a circumstance I have observed. Another favorite proof of ball earthers is the appearance, and I hate the flat earther, ball earther. I do not like these labels. I am not a flat earther or a ball earther. I have only been where I've been. I haven't bear witness to the world. I am where I am, and I've been where I've been, and it's not been the world that I went to. I have not observed where we are. I have not seen where we are as a whole. I've been in a plane, and the only thing that I could see is the dirt below. That's it. I'm not a flat earther or a ball earther. I seek the truth. I live in reality. Whether you see a mound, a mountain, or whatever. I've only walked on a flat surface. Another favorite proof of ball earthers is that appearance from an observer on shore of ships' hulls being obfuscated by the water and disappearing from view when sailing away toward the horizon. Their claim is that ships' hulls disappear before their mast heads because the ship is beginning its declination around the convex curvature of the ball earth. Once again, however, their hasty conclusion is drawn from a faulty premise, namely that only a ball earth could this phenomenon occur. The fact of the matter is that the law of perspective on plane surfaces dictate and necessitates the exact same occurrence. For example, a girl wearing a dress walking away toward the horizon will appear to sink into the earth the farther away she walks. Her feet will disappear from the view first, and the distance between the ground and the bottom of her dress will gradually diminish until after about a half a mile it seems like her dress is touching the ground as she walks on invisible legs. Such is the case on plane surfaces. The lowest part of objects receding from a given point of observation necessarily disappear before the highest. Not only is the disappearance of ships' hulls explained by the law of perspective on flat surfaces, it is proven undeniably true with the aid of a good telescope. If you watch a ship sailing away into the horizon with the naked eye until its hull has completely disappeared from view under the supposed curvature of the earth, then look through a telescope, you will notice the entire ship quickly zooms back into view, hull and all, proving that the disappearance was caused by the law of perspective, not by a wall of curved water. This also proves that the horizon is simply the vanishing line of perspective from your point of view, not the alleged curvature of the earth. The Coriolis effect is often said to cause sinks and toilet bowls in the northern hemisphere to drain spinning one direction, while in the southern hemisphere causing them to spin the opposite way, thus providing proof of the spinning ball earth. Once again, however, just like Foucault's pendulums spinning either which way, sinks and toilets in the northern and southern hemisphere do not consistently spin in any one direction. Sinks and toilets in the very same household are often found to spin opposite direction, depending entirely upon the shape of the basin and the angle of the water's entry, not the supposed rotation of the earth. People claim that if the earth were flat, they should be able to use a telescope and see clear across the oceans. This is absurd. However, as the air is full of precipitation, especially over the oceans and especially at the lowest, densest layer of atmosphere, is not transparent. Picture the blurry haze over roads on hot, humid days. Even the best telescope will blur out long before you could see across the ocean. You can, however, use a telescope to zoom in much more of our flat Earth than would be possible on a ball 25,000 miles in circumference. People claim that if the Earth were flat, with the sun circling over and around us, we should be able to see sun from everywhere all over the Earth, and there should be daylight even at nighttime. Since the sun is not 93 million miles away, but rather just a few thousand and shining down like a spotlight, once it has moved significantly far away from your location, it becomes invisible beyond the horizon and daylight slowly fades until it completely disappears. If the sun were 93 million miles away and the earth's spinning ball, the transition from daylight to night would instead be almost instantaneous as you passed the Terminator line. Some people claim to have seen the curvature of the earth out their airplane windows. The glass used in all commercial airplanes, however, is curved to remain flush with the fuselage. This creates a slight effect mixed with confirmation bias people mistake for being the alleged curvature of the earth. In addition, in actuality, the fact that you can see the horizon at eye level at 35,000 feet out both port starboard windows prove the earth is flat. If the earth were a ball, no matter how big, the horizons would stay exactly where it was, and you would have to look down further and further to see the horizon at all. Looking straight out the window at 35,000 feet, you should see nothing but outer space from the port and starboard windows, as the earth horizon are supposed to be below you. If they are visible at eye level outside both side windows, it's because the earth is flat. It is impossible for rockets or any type of jet propulsion engines to work in the alleged non-atmosphere of vacuum space because without air atmosphere to push against, there is nothing to propel the vehicle forwards. Instead, the rockets and shuttles would be sent spinning around their own axis uncontrollably in all directions like a gyroscope. It would be impossible to fly to the moon or go in any direction whatsoever, especially if gravity were real and constantly sucking you toward the closest, densest body. If Earth were really a ball, there would be no reason to use rockets for flying into outer space. Anyway, because simply flying an airplane straight at any altitude for long enough should and would send you off into outer space. To prevent their airplanes from flying tangent to the ball Earth, pilots would have to constantly course correct downward, or else within just a few hours, the average commercial airline traveling 500 miles per hour would find themselves lost in outer space. The fact that never happens, artificial horizons remain level at pilots' desired altitudes and do not require constant downward adjustments, proves the Earth is not a ball. Let's shake it. All NASA and other space agencies' rocket launches never go straight up. Every rocket forms a parabolic curve, peaks out, and inevitably starts facing back to Earth. The rockets which are declared successful are those few which don't explode or start falling too soon, but make it out of the range of spectator view before crashing down into restricted waters and recovered. Interesting. There is no magic altitude where rockets or anything else can simply go up, 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 and then suddenly just start free floating in space. How are we able to be fooled so easily? I mean, it seems like a no brainer, right? No pun intended. This is all This is all a science fiction illusion created by wires, green screens, dark pools, some permed hair, and zero G planes. NASA and other space agencies have been caught time and again with air bubbles forming and floating off their official outer space footage. Astronauts have also been caught using scuba space gear, kicking their legs to move, and astronauts Luca Pamultano even almost drowned when water started filling up his helmet while allegedly on a spacewalk. It is admitted that astronauts train for their spacewalks in underwater training facilities like NASA's Neutral Buoyancy Lab. But what is obvious from their space bubbles and other blunders is that all official spacewalk footage is also fake and filmed underwater. Analysis of many interior videos from International Space Station have shown the use of camera tricks such as green screens, harnesses, and even wildly permed hair to achieve a zero gravity type effect. Footage of astronauts seemingly floating in the zero gravity of their space station is indistinguishable from Vomit Comet zero G airplane footage. By flying parabolic maneuvers, this zero G floating effect can be achieved over and over and over again, then edited together. For longer uncut shots, NASA has been caught using simple wires and green screen technology. So-called satellite phones have been found to have reception problems in countries like Kazakhstan, with very few cell phone towers. If the Earth were a ball with 20,000 plus satellites surrounding it, such blackouts should not regularly occur in any rural countryside area. Satellites are allegedly floating around the thermosphere, where temperatures are claimed to be upwards of 4,530 degrees Fahrenheit. The metals used in satellites, however, such as aluminum, gold, and titanium, have melting points of 1,221, 1,948, and 3,034 degrees, respectively, all far lower than they could possibly handle. So-called satellite TV dishes are almost always positioned at a 45-degree angle toward the nearest ground-based repeater tower. If TV antenna were actually picking up signals from satellites 100 plus miles in space, most TV dishes should be pointing more or less straight up to the sky. The fact that satellite dishes are never pointing straight up and almost always positioned at a 45-degree angle proves they are picking up ground-based tower signals and not outer space satellites. People even claim to see satellites with their naked eyes. But this is ridiculous considering they are smaller than a bus and allegedly 100 plus miles away. It is impossible to see anything so small that far away. Even using telescopes, no one claims to discern the shape of satellites, but rather describes seeing passing moving lights, which could easily be a number of things from airplanes to drones to shooting stars or other unidentified flying objects. NASA claims there are upwards of 20,000 satellites floating around Earth's upper atmosphere, sending us radio, television, GPS, and taking pictures of the planet. All these supposed pictures, however, are admittedly composite images edited in Photoshop. They claim to receive ribbons of imagery from satellites which must then be spliced together to create composite images of Earth, all of which are clearly CGI and not photographs. If Earth were truly a ball with 20,000 satellites orbiting, it would be a simple matter to mount a camera and take some real photographs. The fact that no real satellite photographs of the supposed ball Earth exist in favor of NASA's ribbons of composite CG imagery is further proof we are not being told the truth. If you pick any cloud in the sky and watch for several minutes, two things will happen. The cloud will move and they will morph gradually, changing shape. In official NASA footage of the spinning ball Earth, such as the Galileo time lapse video, however, clouds are constantly shown 24 plus hours at a time and not moving or morphing whatsoever. This is completely impossible. Further proof that NASA produces fake CGI videos and further evidence that Earth is not a spinning ball. NASA has several alleged photographs of the ball Earth which show several exact duplicate cloud patterns. The likelihood of having two or three clouds of the exact same shape in the same picture is as likely as finding two or three people with exactly the same fingerprints. In fact, it is solid proof that the clouds were copied and pasted in a computer program, and that such pictures showing a ball-shaped Earth are fakes. NASA's graphic artists have placed things like faces, dragons, and even the word sex into cloud patterns over their various ball Earth pictures. Their recent 2015 Pluto pictures even clearly have a picture of Disney's Pluto, the dog, layered into the background. Such blatant fraud goes unnoticed by the hypnotized masses, but provides further proof of the illegitimacy of NASA and their spinning ball planet mythos. Professional photo analysis have dissected several NASA images of the ball Earth and found undeniable proof of computer editing. For example, images of the Earth allegedly taken from the moon have proven to be copied and pasted in, as evidenced by rectangular cuts found in the black background around the Earth by adjusting brightness and contrast levels. If they were truly on the moon and Earth was truly a ball, there would be no need to take such pictures, to fake such pictures. When NASA's images of the ball Earth are compared with one another, the coloration of the land, oceans, and relative size of the continents are consistently so drastically different from one another as to prove beyond any reasonable doubt that the pictures were all fake. In the documentary, A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, you can watch official leaked NASA footage showing Apollo 11 astronauts Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong, and Michael Collins for almost an hour using transparencies and camera tricks to fake shots of around Earth. They communicate over audio with control in Houston about how to accurately stage the shot, and someone keeps prompting them on how to effectively manipulate the camera to achieve the desired effect. First, they blacked out all the windows except for a downward-facing circular one, which they aimed the camera toward from several feet away. This created the illusion of a ball-shaped Earth surrounded by blackness of space, when in fact it was simply a round window in their dark cabin. Neil Armstrong claimed at this point to be 130,000 miles from Earth. Halfway to the moon. But when camera tricks were finished, the viewer could see for themselves that astronauts were not more than a couple dozen miles above the Earth's surface, likely flying in a high altitude plane. People claim Google Earth somehow proves the ball model, without realizing that Google Earth is simply a composite program of images taken from high altitude planes and street level car cameras superimposed onto a CGI model of a ball Earth. The same could be just as easily modeled onto a square Earth or any other shape, and therefore cannot be used as proof of Earth's rotundity. If the Earth were constantly spinning eastward 1,000 miles per hour, then airplane flights durations going eastward versus westward should be significantly different. If the average commercial airliner travels 500 miles per hour, it follows that westbound equatorial flights should reach their destination at approximately thrice the speed as their eastbound return flights. In reality, however, the distances in east-westbound flights durations usually amount to a matter of minutes, and nothing near what would occur on 1,000-mile per hour spinning ball Earth. The spinning ball model dictates that the Earth and atmosphere would be moving together at approximately 500 miles per hour at the mid-latitudes where an LA to NYC flight take place. The average commercial airliner traveling 500 miles per hour takes 5.5 hours traveling east with the alleged rotation of the Earth, so the return flight west should take only 2.75 hours. But in fact, we find the average New York City to LA flight takes 6 hours, a flight time totally inconsistent with the spinning ball model. Flights eastward with the alleged spin of the ball Earth from Tokyo to LA take an average of 10.5 hours. Therefore, the return flights westward against the alleged spin should take an average of 5.25 hours, but in actual fact, take an average of 11.5 hours. Another flight time totally inconsistent with the spinning ball model. Flights eastward with the alleged spin of the ball Earth from New York to London take an average of 7 hours. Therefore, the return flights westward against the alleged spin should take an average of 3.5 hours, but in actual fact, take an average of 7.5 hours, a flight time totally inconsistent with the spinning ball model. Flights eastward from Chicago to Boston with the alleged spin of the ball Earth take an average of 2.25 hours. Therefore, the return flights westward against the alleged spin should take an average of just over an hour, but in actual fact, take an average of 2.75 hours, once again completely inconsistent with the spinning ball model. Flights eastward from Paris to Rome with the alleged spin of the ball Earth take an average of 2 hours. Therefore, the return flight westward against the alleged spin should take an average of 1 hour, but in actual fact have an average flight duration of 2 hours 10 minutes, a flight time totally inconsistent with the spinning ball model. We are told that the Earth and atmosphere spin together at such a perfect uniform velocity that no one in history has ever seen, heard, felt, or measured the supposed 1,000 miles per hour movement. This is then often compared to traveling in a car at uniform velocity, where we only feel the movement during acceleration or deceleration. In reality, however, even with eyes closed, windows up, over smooth tar in a luxury car at a mere uniform 50 miles per hour, the movement absolutely can be felt. At 20 times this speed, Earth's imaginary 1,000 miles per hour spin would most likely be noticeable, felt, seen, and heard by all. People sensitive to motion sickness feel distinct unease and physical discomfort from motion as slight as an elevator or a train ride. This means that the 1,000 miles per hour alleged uniform span of the Earth has no effect on such people, but add an extra 50 miles per hour uniform velocity of a car and their stomach starts turning knots. The idea that motion sickness is nowhere apparent in anyone at 1,000 miles per hour, but suddenly comes about at 1,050 miles per hour is ridiculous and proves the Earth is not in motion whatsoever. The Bible, Quran, Stramad, Bhagavad Gita, and many other holy books describe and purport the existence of a geocentric stationary flat earth. For example, 1 Chronicles 16 through 30 and Psalm 96:10 both read, "He has fixed the earth firm, immovable." And Psalm 93:1 says, "The world also established that it cannot be moved." The Bible also repeatedly affirms that the earth is outstretched as a plane, with the outstretched heavens everywhere above, not all around, giving a scriptural proof that the earth is not a spinning ball. Quoting Terra Firma by David Wardlaw Scott, The system of the universe, as taught by modern astronomers, being founded entirely on theory, for the truth of which they are unable to advance one single real proof. They have entrenched themselves in a conspiracy of silence and decline to answer any objection which may be made to their hypothesis. Copernicus himself, who revived the theory of the heathen philosopher Pythagoras, and his great exponent Sir Isaac Newton, confessed that their system of a revolving earth was only a possibility and could not be proved by facts. It is only their followers who have decorated it with the name of an exact science. Yeah, according to them, the most exact of the sciences. Yet one astronomer royal for England once said, speaking of the motion of the whole solar system, the matter is left in a most delightful state of uncertainty. And I shall be very glad if anyone can help me out of it. What a very sad position for an exact science to be in, is this? What a very sad position for an exact science to be in is this. Why do you believe what you believe about Earth? Do you know why you believe what you believe? Or have you not thought about it? I've always thought about questions such as this, such as questions about the earth and other things we won't get into right now. I can't say that I believed the earth was round or the earth was flat, and I had other questions about the earth. I did have it was confusing to me about the 1,000 miles per hour, but still, yet and still, with this show, I'm not telling you that I believe one thing or the other. See, I don't know. I don't know. But there are others who have delved deep into these topics. Such as Eric Dubé and all of the sources that he's using here. I'm not telling you what to believe, okay? As much as some may want me to tell you what to believe, just as you are receptive to others telling you what your thoughts should be, that's not the case here. You think for yourself. Think for yourself. Why do you believe what you believe about whether or not the earth is round or it is flat? It almost seems ridiculous to even be having this conversation. No child or unindoctrinated man in their right mind would ever conclude or even conceive given to their own devices based on their own personal observation that the earth was a spinning ball revolving around the sun. Such imaginative theories nowhere present in anyone's daily experience require and have required massive amounts of constant propaganda to uphold the illusion. No child or unindoctrinated man in their right mind would ever conclude or even conceive, given to their own devices, based on their own personal observations, that the earth was a spinning ball revolving around the sun. Such imaginative theories, nowhere present in anyone's daily experience, require and have required massive amounts of constant propaganda to uphold the illusion. I agree. It's one of many illusions that massive amounts of propaganda have been used to uphold. From David Wardlaw Scott. I remember being taught when a boy that the earth was a great ball, revolving at a very rapid rate around the sun, and when I expressed to my teacher my fears that the waters of the oceans would tumble off, I was told that they were prevented from doing so by Newton's great law of gravitation, which kept everything in proper place. I presume that my countenance must have shown some signs of incredulity, for my teacher immediately added, I can show you a direct proof of this. A man can whirl around his head a pail filled with water without its being spilt, and so, in the manner, can the oceans be carried round the sun without losing a drop. As this illustration was evidently intended to settle the matter, I then said no more upon the subject. Had such been proposed to me afterward as a man, I would have answered somewhat as follows. Sir, I beg to say that the illustrations you have given of a man whirling a pail of water round his head and the oceans revolving round the sun does not in any degree confirm your argument, because the water in the two cases is placed under entirely different circumstances. But to be of any value, the condition in each case must be the same, which here they are not. The pail is a hollow vessel which holds the water inside it, whereas, according to your teaching, the earth is a ball with a continuous curvature outside, which in agreement with the laws of nature could not retain any water. Astronomers say the magical magnetism of gravity is what keeps all the oceans of the world stuck to the ball Earth. They claim that because the Earth is so massive, by virtue of this mass, it creates a magic force able to hold people, oceans, and atmosphere tightly clung to the underside of the spinning ball. Unfortunately, however, they cannot provide any practical example of this on a scale smaller than the planetary. A spinning wet tennis ball, for instance, has the exact opposite effect of the supposed ball Earth. Any water poured over it simply falls off the sides, and giving it a spin results in water flying off 360 degrees like a dog shaking after a bath. Astronomers concede the wet tennis ball example displays the opposite effect of their supposed ball Earth, but claim that at the same unknown mass, the magic adhesive properties of gravity suddenly kick in, allowing the spinning wet tennis ball Earth to keep every drop of gravitized water stuck to the surface. When such an unproven theory goes against all experiments, experience, and common sense, it is high time to drop the theory. From David Wardlaw Scott. Quoting Marshall Hall, in short, the sun, the moon, and the stars are actually doing precisely what everyone throughout all history has seen them do. We do not believe what our eyes tell us because we have been taught a counterfeit system which demands that we believe what has never been confirmed by observation or experiment. That counterfeit system demands that the earth rotate on an axis every 24 hours at a speed of over 1,000 miles per hour at the equator. No one has ever seen or felt such a movement, nor seen or felt the 67,000 miles per hour speed of the Earth's alleged orbit around the sun, or its 500,000 mile per hour alleged speed around a galaxy, or its retreat from an alleged Big Bang at over 670 million miles per hour. Remember, no experiment has ever shown the earth to be moving. Add to that the fact that alleged rotational speed, we've all been taught as scientific fact must decrease every inch or mile one goes north or south of the equator. And it becomes readily apparent that such things as accurate aerial bombing in World War II down a chimney from 25,000 feet with the plane going any direction at high speed would have been impossible if calculated on an earth moving below at several hundred miles per hour and changing continuously with the latitude. Some say the idea of an intergenerational worldwide conspiracy to delude the masses sounds implausible or unrealistic, but these people need only familiarize themselves with the works and writings of Freemasons themselves. For example, John Robison, who exposed this in his 1798 book, Proofs of Conspiracy Against All the Religion and Governments of Europe Carried Out in the Secret Meetings of the Freemasons, Illuminati, and Reading Societies. Supreme Commander of the 33rd Degree Albert Pike was quite forthcoming in several letters regarding the Masons' ultimate goal of world domination, and in the Zionist protocols of the learned elders of Zion, the exact plan by which this would be and has been carried out is completely disclosed. From Foundations of Many Generations by E. Eschini. The one thing the fable of the revolving earth has done, it has shown the terrible power of a lie. A lie has the power to make a man a mental slave, so that he dares not back the evidence of his own senses. To deny the plain and obvious movement of the sun he sees before him. When he feels himself standing on the earth's utterly devoid of motion at the suggestion of someone else, he is prepared to accept that he is spinning furiously round. When he sees a bird flying and gaining over the ground, he is prepared to believe that the ground is really traveling a great number of times faster than the bird. Finally, in order to uphold the imagination of a madman, he is prepared to accuse his maker of forming him a sensiferous lie. And finally, from Dr. Raubathan. Thus, we see that the Newtonian philosophy is devoid of consistency. Its details are the result of an entire violation of the laws of legitimate reasoning, and all its premises are assumed. It is, in fact, nothing more than assumption upon assumption, and the conclusion derived therefrom are willfully considered as things proved and to be employed as truths to substantiate the first and fundamental assumptions. Such a juggle and jumble of fancies and falsehoods, extended and intensified as in theoretical astronomy, is calculated to make the unprejudiced inquirer revolt with horror from the terrible conjuration which has been practiced upon him. To sternly resolved to resist its further progress, to endeavor to overthrow the entire edifice, and to bury in its ruins the false honors which have been associated with its fabricators and which still attach to its devotees. For the learning, the patience, the perseverance, and devotion for which they have ever been examples, honor and applause need not be withheld, but their false reasoning, the advantages they have taken of the general ignorance of mankind in respect to astronomical subjects, and the unfounded theories they have advanced and defended, cannot be otherwise than regretted, and ought to be every possible means uprooted. Oxford English Dictionary. Space. The amount of time contained in a specified period. The period or amount of time already specified, indicated, or otherwise determined. We are speaking about the word space, an appropriate or allotted time, from 1382. Linear distance, interval between two or more points, objects, etc., from 1350. Extent or area sufficient for a purpose, action, etc., room to contain or do something, from 1387. The expanse in which celestial objects are situated. The physical universe, excluding celestial objects beyond the Earth's atmosphere, consisting of near vacuum with small amounts of gas and dust, from 1582. Continuous, unbounded, or unlimited extent in every direction, without reference to any matter that may be present. This regarded as an attribute of the universe, describable mathematically in modern science, usually conflated with time. A mathematical construct or model of this. A mathematical construct or model of this. A part or section marked off in some way from a larger area or extent. A division, section. We are speaking about space. The meanings of space. This is from 1392. An empty place or part, a void, a gap. Any one of a limited number of places in which a person or thing may be accommodated. Again, we're speaking of space, the heavens, the skies, the firmament, the heaven, the skies, the firmament. A short distance. We're speaking of the definition of space. A short distance. Do the right thing.